Morning. A little later than normal. Not unexpected for Monday, realistically. Not too bad. A couple minutes behind for that. Just making sure everything's all good on the stream. Mainly because I had to wipe everything on my system this weekend, having some crazy errors on the MacBook. Now I think it's all resolved. Little different look, as you can tell, because I'm throwing this together, but also behind me is the green screen. Not that I'm going to green screen anything in right now, but I actually have to do a reshoot for something I shot this weekend, and I need the green screen for that. So I figured, well, I'm half set up, so why not just broadcast here from this? So Monday morning, 18th episode of Mornings with Mark. You can hit me up anytime online at MarkNCA. Thanks for tuning in. Keep to tune in. Interesting stuff on tap for today. Lots to think about. What I want to talk about this morning actually is kind of the news that broke about Facebook and the analytics company Cambridge Analytica and the amount of data that they had harvested. And this is something that had come up years ago, and it's just kind of coming home to roost now. So as we know, Facebook has had a propensity over its early years to change its terms of service, to change its privacy settings, any number of things. And then early on, there were some real questions about sort of motivation, and people didn't necessarily have the ability to control their information as much as they do now. Now, I'm quite happy with where Facebook is now with user control. So obviously Facebook still sees everything you're doing, but users now have a huge amount of granularity as far as where they can publish. So this stream, for example, is going out live publicly, so to the world, on my page, Mark NCA. I, Mark, also have a profile. Now that profile is something that I just keep for friends and family, and all my professional work is done here on Mark NCA. Now that's a good split. I like that ability, but even within Mark NCA, the page, as well as my profile, I have the ability for every post to say, you know what, this should only go to my parents or to my extended family or to my immediate family. This should go public, whatever the case may be, right? So you can control things quite granularly. Easy example is Facebook Live. I don't do live on my own profile that often, but when I do, it's normally because someone in the family could make it to an event, and I will do a live stream directly to that person or the people who missed it. So I'll be streaming literally to two people, and then that post goes up on my profile to those two people as well. And that's possible and relatively easy to do, but things weren't always that way. Now, of course, Facebook still has access to a lot of this information, and the terms of service let them harvest it so that you can, brands and pages can push out to people, and you can still advertise to them, because that's where they make their money, is obviously on advertisement. But the scandal that popped up, or sort of the article that popped up this weekend, was the use of Cambridge Analytica had harvested an insane amount, millions and millions and millions of profiles a couple years back, and they did it through a third party. And a couple years back, that was actually possible through research. Now, there's still a violation of the terms of service, but again, terms of service are just an agreement. It's not a technical block. And in security, if it's an agreement, you assume it's going to be breached, whereas a technical block is far more important. And what used to be possible technically a couple years ago was that you could very easily crawl the network or the social graph of various people. So if you had a web page that let people log in via Facebook, you could then crawl the graph of all their friends. You could pull in a huge amount of information very, very easily. And over the years, Facebook has sort of ratcheted that down, which is a good thing. They've also given the user far more control, though a ton of applications still break. So you notice when you connect Facebook to an application, you actually have the ability to control what permissions it gets. The vast majority of applications break if you change the permissions they ask for, but the possibility is still there with the user. At least you're making an explicit choice and acknowledging those permissions. It needs to get better, but it's far better than it was, and that's really where this Analytica scandal comes from. Was years ago when it was possible of, if I logged into your web page as Mark, you could then crawl my friend graph. You were basically me. So you could see everything that I could see on Facebook. And what this third-party researcher to Analytica had done was essentially do that over and over and over and over again, and harvested from accessing several million accounts. They were able to access tens of millions of accounts in those networks. And then they packaged all that data up, bundled it into a form that they could analyze, and that's where they started harvesting or creating voter profiles by combining it with additional information and a whole bunch of other things like that. Obviously, there is a huge issue with this. It goes against the terms of service at the time. It didn't break the technology at the time. Now the technology and the terms of service are aligned, which is a very good thing. But this is yet another blow to social networks and social media in that, and it's somewhat surprising in that people didn't see this coming. A lot of folks did. It's one of those things where, unfortunately, people kind of thought just the best, and didn't realize that these networks are designed to influence people. This is the bottom line of a social network, is that it's supposed to drive influence. It's supposed to create these networks. So when they're being used with malicious intent or intent that you don't agree with, there becomes a significant problem. So it's interesting, actually. I just watched Ricky Gervais's latest comedy special on Netflix, Humanity. It's pretty good. You should check it out. And he had a point in that at some, one of his bits was that he was pointing out that at some point we shifted away from quality of information and factual information to opinions and popularity contests. And of course, social media flares or fuels that. But I think what's interesting is sort of the efforts that are being made to combat it when the fundamental fabric of these networks is what's inclusion here, like is what the goal of these networks is to spread influence and to create popularity contests, and to drive likes and to drive, engagement. And obviously fully participating on that, I realize the irony of speaking to you via one of these networks. The challenge is how do you as a consumer, make intelligent choices about what you are consuming, but also what you're sharing, but also how do you validate that? So there was an interesting announcement, not to stop picking on Facebook, but to push over to YouTube, where they're going to start putting in Wikipedia references for things that are contested or potentially at issue, which I think is interesting in itself, because it's not like Wikipedia doesn't share similar challenges. Wikipedia has had quite a few scandals around the editorial, key super user editors, and things like that, but it is at least an effort. And I think that's really what we have to go for here, is when it comes to this kind of stuff, it's like security. You have to put security in from the start. You can't bolt it on. If you bolt it on, it's not going to be nearly as effective. But we have to do something. Social media does some fantastic things. The ability for us to be connected with positive spirits, with positivity, to contribute to causes, to become aware of causes, to help each other out is too great to ignore. It's too much of an upside. But there is a downside, and I think we need to tackle it. Part of that is building controls into the network. Part of that is building tools around the network that allow people to evaluate what they're seeing and verify what they're seeing. But it's no easy solution. But the problem is when people only go for the perfect solution, we're not going to get any solution. So big topic for a Monday. I kind of apologize for that. I did want to show off my new mug. Super cool. I also badly needed some tea. Unfortunately, it's not as caffeinated as I need this morning. But anyway, thank you for bearing with me. What are your thoughts on impact of social media, ability to control it, tools that we need around it? What would make it easy for you to evaluate the content you're seeing and see whether it's legitimate, whether it's factual, whether it's purely opinion-based? I'm curious. Honestly, I have my own perspective, but obviously as a security professional, privacy professional, as someone steeped in technology, I think it's completely different than the average user. So by all means, hit me up, Mark NCAA. There we go, Mark NCAA. Love to talk about this. Lots more. This is not an issue that's going away. This is going to keep coming around. So I think it's something that only gets better with discussion. So hit me up here in the comments below, on YouTube, on Facebook, every other network at Mark NCAA. Hope you have a great Monday. Hopefully it's lighter than this discussion was. But again, I think it's important, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say. Have a great day.